In Botswana, HIV is a generalized pandemic affecting every community and nearly every family in the country. This pandemic has reduced life expectancy by more than 20 years and has had a dramatic effect on all aspects of the society, including labor shortages, budget allocation, and social norms.
Friends of Diversity is a non-profit organization that was established in the year 2017 but formally registered in the year 2018 with an aim to advancing the rights of LGBTI people in Botswana.
Hi everyone, greetings to you all. My name is Alamudimo Baitiwi. I'm a law student and I'm 20 years old. What triggered me choosing this path that I've chosen regarding my career is I want to be there and advocate for the rights of my community because we come from the same community. So in other terms, they are my siblings, they are my rainbow siblings. I love them with everything that I have. So the reason why I chose this path is because I want to advocate for that. I might be privileged, but I want to be there for those who are not privileged, specifically for the trans and intersex community.
LGBTI individuals in Botswana face a number of challenges that affect their ability to enjoy their health and other rights. Despite increasing visibility and targeted health interventions, arguments that LGBTI people are non-existent and foreign influence persist. Although there are well-known gay hangouts and LGBTI people, sexual minorities continue to be marginalized and understood as other in relation to dominant religious and cultural beliefs, while some claim homosexuality is un-African and was brought by whites.
I've been privileged, I don't want to lie. And there is a clinic that is called Youth Clinic. It's a clinic that specifically focuses on offering services to the youth. I did not even know about this clinic for years. Only this year that I found out that we have such clinics in our country. And it was so amazing to see a health or medical practitioner coming through to attend such services or such meetings, trainings about LGBTI persons. So the reception, or should I say the way that LGBTI persons are being accommodated at such facilities, be it developed or any other facilities, it hinders them or makes them feel ashamed of asking for things like lubricants, because whenever a gay guy asks for lubricants, they are going to be asked, what are you going to do with those lubricants? Why don't you ask for condoms instead? You see how I think what I should say is accommodation hinders the LGBTI person from freely expressing who they are.
Despite predominantly heterosexual transmission, sexual and gender minorities have attained a higher level of visibility in Botswana, largely due to increasingly inclusive HIV interventions. LGBTI people in Botswana, however, continue to face specific challenges in accessing healthcare and information and methods of HIV prevention. Cultural and social disapproval have direct health impacts. Transgender community in particular report high levels of distress, including elevated levels of suicidality and substance abuse.
The trans community encounters stigma and discrimination whenever they want to access HIV services because of people who do not have enough information or do not have, or who are not trained enough to assist transgender persons.
There's a lack of education, if I may say. Gay people specifically, we need to be educated more with on issues of HIV issues relating to HIV, so that we can be more comfortable with accepting our status and living with it without feeling ashamed of ourselves.
Add new challenges for transgender individuals and therefore can lead to devastating consequences like severe physical or mental health issues, self-harming behavior, and suicidality. Up to now, transgender people have been considered to be a vulnerable social group, many of whom have experienced discrimination and marginalization by society and healthcare systems in particular.
COVID-19 has affected me in a negative way when it comes to my mental health, because at some point I was not able to refill my medication or take my medication well on time. As we all know that we are currently experiencing worldwide shortage of drugs. So it drains me as a trans person for me not being able to go for my checkups because of the restriction of movements and failure to have my medication well on time.
Gaborone or Greater Gaborone will undergo a period of extreme social distancing or lockdown until further notice.
COVID affected most of us, and a huge amount of people losing jobs. It's been out there a lot. The criteria that was used, that is the one time you get leverage to say make it anti-engine because engine doesn't look good for my office as somebody who is queer or any other reasons whatsoever. We saw queer people, we saw LGBTI losing jobs, and lockdown for somebody who is queer and maybe isn't so much accepted, they had to you have an option. You have a shelter over your head. You have to comply to, the rules of the home, and that means taking away a lot of who you are. And so that you see another day.
Social institutions also play a role in increased risk of HIV among gay men. In particular, it's been shown that homophobia makes it more difficult for gay men to access healthcare.
I identify as homosexual. I'm gay.
We are doing what we call community mobilization, where through the community mobilization we are adopting a peer education approach model, where our peer educators get in the field, interact with LGBTI communities, raise awareness on issues of HIV prevention, care and support. We also, as an organization, we refer LGBTI people to access HIV services, especially HIV counseling and testing. We have our partners that we usually refer our clients or our LGBTI communities to, but we also are providing psychosocial support to LGBTI people. We have a project that is running that is called Open Hands. So this project basically looks into advocating for the mental health and awareness of LGBTI people. So through the project, we have what we call self-love groups, where LGBTI people convene, discuss and share experiences that they encounter in life. So that project on its own, it's very therapeutic for them. But we also provide HIV prevention commodities such as condoms, such as lubes, such as finger cords and dental dams. We understand that those commodities are not offered for free in our public health care facilities. So we decided as an organization to fill that gap and provide those commodities for free for our LGBTI communities in Botswana.
Ra discriminatiwa ka hare ntseng ka teng. Ga re botswa dipotso tse di sanang sentle. Ga re thuswe hela sentle la ka lorato ka yes, because re lesbian, re gay, transgender, yes.
Talking in general, I'd say every service that's available for general population is available for queer people, but not as it is available for a general population, because there are things like for trans people, there are things of being misgendered every day when you go and access services. Somebody, because of what the sex you assigned at birth, assuming that you identify with the same gender, so that making it, there are so many red tapes and there are so many roadblocks for actually the LGBTIQ people to actually access health services with LGBTIQ friendly health services. Honestly, there are none, or they are limited, and if they are there, people are not talking about them. It's just the interaction that you're going to have as an individual with the person who is assisting you. But otherwise, if you meet somebody who I would say is difficult or very judgmental in the health sector or as a service provider, then you have another thing coming, because they'll start telling you about how being LGBTQI plus is a sin sometimes, or it's not a respectable thing. It's like it's a trend, but people need to understand that it is not a trend. It's somebody's livelihood. So yes, I think every services are there, but they're not tailor-made or friendly to the LGBTIQ community. All services, that is, because even from the form, even from the cards that are issued at the hospital when you don't, medical cards, they are so discriminatory in the sense that there is no card for an intersex person, but maybe because the government claims that we don't exist, which we do. We have been making noise for as long as I can remember. We have organizations that have been pushing for sensitizing people and also creating spaces in the community for the LGBTI community. It's just that somehow somebody's not doing the needful, which is meeting the LGBTIQ community halfway or being service providers instead of custodians of what is right or what is wrong ethically, and who is actually deciding on that. So in all honesty, according to me, there are limited services because they are not tailor-made for the LGBTI community, or they are not friendly for the LGBTI community, unless if they are in organizations like Developele, which are NGOs mostly and not everywhere in the country. There are places where it's not there, but in government offices like that, they are limited.
Between 2010 and 2018, there was a softening towards LGBTI persons. Former President Festus Mogae stated that when in power, he advised police not to enforce Section 164. He explained, "We do not want to discriminate."
For trans persons who reside in remote areas, encountered so many challenges compared to us who are living in, should I say, developed or urban areas.
Those who should be giving us services regarding HIV, I'd say, I'm really not sure what the problem is that side, because it should be flowing, but it's not.
HIV care services should be provided in a sensitive, respectful, and compassionate manner.
People think of HIV as a sexually transmitted disease that only certain types of people get. But let's take a closer look at the concept. HIV stigma is rooted in fear of HIV. There are many misconceptions about how HIV is spread and what it means to live with HIV today. This lack of information and outdated beliefs leads people to fear getting HIV.
HIV care services should be provided in a sensitive, respectful, and compassionate manner in settings that are free of stigma and discrimination by healthcare workers who are technically competent and knowledgeable about sexual orientation, gender identity, human rights, and the particular situation and the needs of the LGBTI individual being served.
One of the most, which in the obvious case, is HIV testing, counseling and testing, because those really cannot go without the other. But mo Botswana mo ke testing, really there is no counseling in that. So we tell much as we advise the partner testing and putting it in a broad way to say it's partner counseling and testing, I appreciate that about Botswana health sector. But then when you say partner testing, couple goals, so the gap there, you find that in my instance, which is something I once experienced, you know, relationship, equally divided. So I go testing, Liz, being an assignment, and we get there. The lady is just on some really couple testing, you know, not friendship vibes. To be a pepper. So yeah, and I'm like, but as one of the services you give, and you find that those are the gaps. Having to set aside LGBTI people, having to set aside queer relationships, yet it's very essential to have those as well, because telling within the advocacy work I've done, tabo willful infection, tabo my partner on and obviously because there's so much trust, I can just simply tell my partner, so it's easy for my partner to trust that.
The challenges that bisexual people face about to access health-related services who include discrimination on their sexuality. Like, when last did you have sex? Positive kana o negative, and then maybe I think most of the time in the 6 months or so. So how molella okay ke robetse le re this time and this time ka ta le mme and this time those, can I say, questions they make you uncomfortable, like how does a person have sex with two people of different genders, and why are you doing that? Those kind of questions they can make you uncomfortable next time when you ask for.
When it comes to relationships and gay people, we are very desperate. I'd say most gay people are desperate for love, and we do the most, We sleep with these men unprotected, we have one-night stands, unprotected sex all the time, but we still know the dangers of it, but we don't act on it. We just act on the sex part. We don't act on the protecting part, because we are so desperate to keep somebody in a relationship with us. So, for instance, you get into a relationship with a man, he tells you he's been dating women, he wants to date you now as another man. So he's basically experimenting with you, right? And when it comes down to that, you're going to have to feel like the need to convince that person that you are the perfect one for them. And you would probably be willing to do above and beyond for that person. And this might include unprotected sex, while you know very well that he's probably out there having sex with other women or something like that. So yeah, I'd say that, when it comes to gay relationships and the dynamics of them, they do heavily contribute to the spread of HIV in that sense, that we are so desperate to be in stable relationships with these men who use us and just leave us, and we end up contracting these diseases.
Intimate partner violence may include different kinds of abuse. Physical abuse may include hitting, kicking, punching, or other kinds of physical violence. Emotional abuse may not include physical violence, but it can be equally as harmful. When someone is abused emotionally, they may be called names.
The intimate partner violence, the GBV, we gender role them to a man and a woman, in this case being Monna Beta Mosadi. These are very common also with LGBTI community. We have same-sex partners, they abuse each other. There is a lot of abuse going on, and I really I commend our Botswana Police Service for having to, throw away that system of saying intimate partner violence is only known for, a man and a woman, but now we're seeing them most through the work of advocacy being done. di-case tsa batho ba ba ratanang ka bong ba e leng gore o itlhela e le gore motho wa tla ko police a report-a gore ke a kitikiwa, you know, and at the same time also having to appreciate gore assault ke assault. So what I can only say is violence happens, intimate partner violence happens, and the power dynamics between LGBTI community, you know, you find that we are a community that's not only self-oriented, but renale batho ba taring wa bana community taring ka hela ka nyahela go tenjelina ka rigali ya entse yana hela khotho ele more the most go take a betsa ka kitikiwa. So hey, do you think we just hide them? And you know, sometimes we're also about what will my fellow community peers say ba lemoga gore nyamme ga ke tshele bobuji like I thought I was. So gore ke tsone dio tse dingwe tse leng gore itlhela gore le rona was self-inflicting that pain, jeopardize in getting the right justice out there and having to stand up and, you know, voice ourselves to say linna ke motho e leng gore ke experience abuse as a person who is dating somebody of the same sex. So gongwe hela ha re ka lebella tsone dikgang tseo ra ithokomela and look more into our mental health and appreciate and acknowledge that violence happens, and mostly even to us.
Friends of Diversity shares insights on what they're doing as an organization to ensure LGBTI people get equitable access to healthcare.
We are currently reviewing Section 15 of the Birth and Death Registration Act of Botswana to allow or to recognize the trans and intersex people. We understand that this is key, and it will open opportunities for trans and intersex people to enjoy other health services without stigma and discrimination services, other health services like HIV services, hormonal treatment, and so forth. We're also working with media. We realize that media is a very, very effective tool in disseminating information about discrimination, and so forth. So we are using both broadcast and digital media, inclusive of social media, because now social media, most people are in social media, they're in Facebook, they're there in Twitter, Instagram, and so forth. So we try to strategically position our communication channels to utilizing those platforms so that we can reach the masses, so that we can educate the people out there about the issues that affect LGBTI people on a day-to-day basis. We also have or adopt a multisexual approach where we work with different stakeholders such as the Kosi, we work with religious leaders, we work with service providers like teachers, social workers, lawyers, and psychologists. We are basically working with the service providers simply because we want them to be part of our strategy in combating stigma and discrimination.
Mr. Sapora reminds us of the existing national legal framework safeguarding the right to health for queer people in Botswana. Moreover, Friends of Diversity organization seeks to align their work to international human rights treaties, standards, and norms in promoting the health of the LGBTI people.
You would realize that our constitution, when you read our constitution in section 12, it speaks of freedom of expression. And as Friends of Diversity, we are saying that LGBTI people also have a right to express themselves. LGBTI people have a right to access services, to access HIV services without fear of being stigmatized, without fear of being discriminated. And then also our national HIV policy also says that no one can be discriminated when they access HIV-related services based on their sexual orientation. So we also feel that we bank on that particular provision, that LGBTI people also don't have to go through what they're going through when they try to access HIV services. It should be a thing of the past. We are doing, as an organization, we are doing several researches. We have been part of the Biological Behavioral Surveillance Study, BBSS study, where the findings from that particular study indicated that the HIV prevalence is stating among men who have sex with men is 13.1% over the general population, which is really problematic. And then also some studies that we are also part of as an organization, that is the legal environment assessment that was coordinated by the UNDP, also shows that LGBTI people are vulnerable to HIV infections. And then we also, as an organization, we pride ourselves in doing international advocacy. So we work with a whole number of organizations internationally and regionally in ensuring that the issues of stigma and discriminations are addressed. We are making sure that our services are in line with the UNA's 1990 targets of eliminating AIDS by the year 2020. And we also provide shadow reports to the African Commission, to the United Nations Security Council on the status of LGBTI people in Botswana. When you read the Article 2 of the African Charter, it speaks of enjoyment on the rights of freedom of expression. And Botswana as a country, as a state, is a party to that treaty, is party to the African Charter. And we are putting pressure in our government to ensure that we have programs, we have robust programs that are inclusive of LGBTI people. And also the Article 16 of the African Charter speaks of the right to health, and you want to ensure that all that we are doing in our country, in our organization, seeks to uphold the provisions that are enshrined in Article 6, which speaks about the right to health. And we want to ensure that the right to health is realized. The right to health for LGBTI people is realized as well in Botswana. Mostly the interventions have always been focused on the biomedical approach. So we, as Friends of Diversity, we realize that we are actually not doing enough in terms of raising issues of mental health of LGBTI people. So we something that we pride ourselves in being unique from other civil society organizations is that we are strengthening the mental health aspects of LGBTI people, because we realize that mental health is interlinked with so many issues. Mental health is interlinked with HIV. Mental health is linked with issues of unemployment amongst LGBTI people. We realize that there is need to actually provide mental health care support, and it's something that we are strong as an organization in that particular area, and we are unique in that area. Well, in the era of COVID-19 pandemic, it really has been stressful. It has been frustrating, especially for LGBTI people. My word of encouragement out there, it would be to just keep on. We need to keep on thriving. We need to keep on challenging the inequalities that are existing. We need, as citizens of Botswana, not just Friends of Diversity only, we need to ensure that we stand up and we defend the rights of LGBTI people, because LGBTI people are part of us. And we really need to ensure that we cultivate that culture, that society that's the society that is recognizing and appreciating and promoting tolerance. So we really need to ensure that we are there. We provide the necessary support for our LGBTI people as a country.